Hello everyone, I'm Deadwing04 and I uninstalled Windows, installed Linux, and you can do it too. Now, before I go any further, a small introduction from me. You can skip this section if you want to. So I'm a full amateur YouTuber. I don't have green screen nor expensive tech setup. I mainly do travel videos in Hungarian in my native language. And this is my attempt to expand this channel. I'm not the best speaker even on my native language, and I've never done a scripted video, so please give me feedback. And you are welcome to watch my travel videos with English subtitles. There are some that are baked in, some that is auto-generated in Hungarian, and then it translates it back to English. It's not perfect, it's something. But now, why did I switch my main expensive gaming PC to Linux? Well, I'm a Windows user since forever. I used Windows 3.11, and it was good. Yeah, it was great. What I never used is Windows 95 and Millennium Edition, for the good, I think. Windows 98 was fine. It was full of issues, but also it was revolutionary. So yeah. Windows XP was loved by everyone. When Windows Vista came, that was my first time that I reached out to Linux. I hated Windows Vista, and because I no longer like what Microsoft offers me, I looked for alternatives, and the alternative was Linux. But I didn't really stick with it because I like to play games and I like Microsoft Office. So Windows released Windows 7 again, loved by everyone, including me. So I just went back to Windows. To Windows for convenience, and I stayed for a while. Windows 8 came. Everyone hated it. I didn't. I liked it. It's not because of the touchscreen-like interface. It was one of the most stable Windows ever, and it was good for that. And then Windows 10, again, it was loved by everyone. Then Windows 11 came. I have to say, I didn't hate it initially. I had some issues. None of them by itself was a deal breaker. So what were extremely annoying? Well, things that are extremely annoying but not to me was the TPM 2.0 chip. So my expensive gaming PC of course had it. I have an older PC that didn't have it. So there are workarounds on the internet. I just did that. I had no problems for a long time until I removed Windows from that machine too. Also, I didn't have any problems with ads. I just didn't have any, I think. And Windows Recall. I don't know. It's not on my PC. I mean, it wasn't. I don't run Windows anymore. But it wasn't on my PC. None of them. It's not even on my work PC that still runs Windows. I don't know. It wasn't a problem for me. What was a problem for me? Strike one. Can't disable telemetry. I hate that. In Windows 10, that was very similar to 11, you could still disable telemetry. For Windows 11, you cannot disable telemetry. And I hate that. I'm just repeating myself. Number two, they destroyed Microsoft Office. As I said, I love Microsoft Office, and I also love Office 365. I love the idea to save on the cloud. It's convenient. I really love it. But have a look at Office.com now. It doesn't exist anymore. Office doesn't exist anymore. It's called Microsoft 365 Copilot. So that was strike two. Strike three, I already said it. Copilot. I don't have a problem with generative AI. I use ChatGPT almost every day. I use local AIs almost every day, and I'm not against the technology. I'm against how Microsoft pushes Copilot. It's everywhere you go, and it's not even working. I need to work with Copilot. Uh, my job requires it, and it's just so bad. So that was strike 3, which was enough. There is a plus one. It's not serious at all, but it's an emotional story. I kind of sort of got used to the start menu. I don't understand why they changed the Windows 10 start menu to the 11 one. They had it perfected, and then they destroyed it. And then with a very recent update, they made it even worse. And I was like, this is the cherry on top. No. So there goes my Windows 11 to Linux. Why you should choose Linux? Because most of the distros are free. It's open source. It's safe from viruses if you know what you're doing, and I will help you to know what you're doing with this video. The alternative LibreOffice is okay. It's not as bad as I thought it is. I used it back then. It just didn't reach the level of Office, Microsoft Office. But you know what? It's good. And gaming is okay now as well. Okay, it's perfect. Now, do you need Linux? Well, the most important question is, are you happy with Windows? If the answer is yes, then you don't need Linux. Yeah, you're okay. It's still a valid choice. But if you are annoyed by anything I just said or something else, then consider changing. It's not complicated to use Linux. It is unusual and different, but it's not complicated. Now, first of all, if you're wondering if you should try Linux first, should you just do dual booting? No, please don't. You will regret it later. Windows Update can nuke all your work, all your OS or all your Linux, and it's just not stable. You can have some level of stability for a while. You will regret it later. So please don't do dual booting. I just switched. Now I make myself disappear in here because I want to start talking about what you should choose. Now, think about Linux as an engine. It's only the engine. You need to choose some things to start working with Linux, and one of them is a Linux distribution. Now, what Linux distribution should you choose? Because this is the graph of all Linux distros. It looks super complicated. The reason is it's open source. So if you see a Linux distribution and you think, wait, I could do this better, then yeah, that's what's happening in here. Actually, it's a lot more simple than you think. Let's start with 3 different concepts of 3 different distros. So there is Debian, and then there is Fedora, and then there is Arch. So going back to Debian, these distros by default don't really want to appeal to Windows users. They don't want to make it specifically easier for you to transition from Windows to Linux. And Debian doesn't do that either. So Debian as a concept is known to use older packages, but their distros are very stable. So for example, if someone wants to run a server and just want to configure it and then leave it and never to return, Debian is the choice because it will probably never fail. I'm over exaggerating, but this is the idea, to have the most stable but not the most recent software. Now, there are some distros that's based on Ubuntu. Sorry, on Debian, like Ubuntu. Um, their goal was back then to make uh, Linux usage more simple. Now, I don't think they really achieved that. In my personal opinion, is I don't like Ubuntu, but probably they were the first to make the Linux usage more simple. Now, if there is a distro that probably did it a bit better, it's Linux Mint. Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu, that's also based on Debian. So if you want a Windows-like environment, but you are still using Linux, you don't mind using slightly older packages, but you want a very stable environment. You don't want to troubleshoot and it won't break ever. Consider using Linux Mint. If you want to try out Ubuntu, feel free to do that, but please try to steer away from other variants. What do I mean by other variants? Now, Ubuntu by default is using their own graphical interface, but Ubuntu can also offer more that I don't find it in this list at the moment. But they, for example, they offer KDE. What is KDE? I will return to that question. So, for example, the KDE version of Ubuntu is called Kubuntu, but I don't recommend them. Now, I talked about Fedora. Fedora is based on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. That is a paid enterprise Linux for corporations, and they use Fedora as but they are basically trying out their packages if it's working or not on Fedora. Now you would think that that this makes Fedora super unstable, but this is not true. Fedora is even the packages on Fedora is tested and it's working great. I can't recommend Fedora enough, but I am not using Fedora. Let's return to the bottom of the list for Arch. I mentioned Arch before. Now, Arch is a little bit different than the others. It is a rolling release distro, meaning is they don't do updates in a regular way. There is just a new package releasing, for example, from Brave, that is my browser, and they just throw it in, and you are expected to do full system updates every time, and it just updates all the packages. If you think this sounds like trouble, you are right. So I have trouble recommending Arch Linux to beginners. Now there is some Arch-based distros like the one that's not listed here, but I am using it, like CatchyOS. CatchyOS is at the moment, I believe, according to DistroWatch, is the most popular Linux distribution out there. It makes gaming a really good experience, but it is based on Arch. Now, what does it mean in practice? Arch has a notoriously famous installation method that they say it's really hard. Now with CatchyOS you don't have that. It's automated for you and it's preloading some packages for you. But it's still based on Arch. It's still rolling release, you still get the newest packages and it might break. So if this is not your cup of tea, then please choose Fedora or Linux Mint. But if you just consider that you want to try something else that's not Windows and not even trying to be like Windows, then consider using Arch. Even the installation method is not that complicated. There is a guide for that. You can follow it, and I guarantee you will have an easy time. It's not as hard as they say. If you choose CatchyOS, that part is automated anyway. You just need to pay attention with the updates. Now there are different graphical interfaces. One of the oldest one is GNOME. For example, Debian is using GNOME. I don't really like it, to be honest. There is KDE. KDE is this one. So this is the most Windows-like. Like there is a start menu as well. There is Mate, for example. What I think Mate is the Linux Mint one, or is it Cinnamon? I'm not too sure. There is XFCE, that is a very lightweight and very customizable one. I kind of like that one, but this is KDE. Now, I've chosen CatchyOS with KDE. The package manager is different for every big Linux versions. For example, everything that's Debian based, including Debian, is apt. And I don't really like apt. Fortunately, I really like pacman. Pacman is the package manager for Arch Linux, including CatchyOS. Alright, so you can notice my desktop looks a little bit different because I'm refilming this part of the video. Now I will talk about how to install an app on CatchyOS and about security in general. So in other words, Linux is not immune from viruses, but it is still way safer than Windows. And this is because the way it works. Installing an app can be a very different experience on different distros, Linux distributions. I will make a video where I will look at a couple of other distros in the future, but now I will focus on CatchyOS and Arch Linux. As an example, I will bring up Android. By the way, Android is also based on Linux. In Android, you have a trusted base of software. It is more often your Google Play Store, but there are other options as well. The main point, you are not downloading an app that can do anything to your PC or phone. On Google Play, you trust Google that the app you are downloading is safe and your phone can run it just fine. Meanwhile, in Windows, you are executing a .exe file. If it's modifying any system files, you get one prompt. You click yes, and then everything else is out of your hands. Moreover, the source code of the apps are more often not open, so you have no idea what the installer or the app is doing exactly in the background. You are trusting the app developer, not Microsoft or Windows. Except with the Microsoft Store, but that's not relevant here. So using Linux is a very similar experience to Android. Most of your apps will come from an official repository. Since CatchyOS is based on Arch Linux, it can install anything from the CatchyOS repositories and from the Arch Linux repositories as well. So let's say you want to download a browser. Let's say it's LibreWolf. LibreWolf is a privacy-focused Firefox-based browser. At the moment I'm using Brave, but I genuinely want to check it out. Maybe I will switch if I like it. So how do you install LibreWolf? Not by going on their website and downloading a file, but first you need to know what's the package name. Now, you can just Google it, but I will show you two methods how you can do it on your PC. And one is Octopi. Octopi is a graphical interface for the package manager. And if we just type in LibreWolf, enter, we can see that LibreWolf is in the CacheOS repositories. That means it was basically a little bit modified by CacheOS to be the most compatible with the system. Now I'm lying in here a little bit because of the bin tag, but let's not go into that one. This is in general how it works. So you just can click install and it will get installed for you, but I'm not going to do that. I will do it in a terminal. Now, again, this is Arch and CacheOS, so we are embracing that it's different than Windows. I will use an app called Paru and LibreWolf to look up the package name, because let's pretend we didn't look up the package name in Octopi. I hit enter and you can see that number 2 is the CacheOS repositories and number 1 is the AUR. I will get back to the AUR. So if LibreWolf would be also in the Arch Linux repositories, it would show up here and you can choose. But I will choose CacheOS, but I will show you how to do it with the package manager that is called pacman. So you type in sudo, that grants root privileges to the command you are executing, then you call pacman, then -S is the sign that you want to install something. It's synchronized, by the way. And LibreWolf, not Wolf, but Wolf. I can spell. Let's say you forgot that it is -bin and you are not sure. You can hit tab and it will tell you that, oh yeah, in the CacheOS repositories we have this. Now you will enter your password and it says, yes, CacheOS repositories LibreWolf -bin, and we also need this as a dependency. Do you want that? Yes. It downloads it, installs it, done. And you can look it up. And that's it. Okay, now let's talk about the AUR. The AUR is the Arch user repositories. The Arch user repositories, as the name suggests, is not maintained by Arch and definitely not maintained by CacheOS. It is maintained by the users. Now if we do paru Spotify, because I don't have Spotify in this machine yet, and hit enter, let's see what happens. So the number 1 choice is the Spotify app from AUR, and then other things that are like Spotify from the CacheOS repositories. Why is that? It is because this one, the official app, is a proprietary app. That means it's not open source. Again, just like in my Windows example, you have no idea what is it doing with the computer. So that's why the CacheOS developers are trying to offer you another alternative, another front end for Spotify that they exactly know what they are doing because they are open source. For this example, because I want to show you what to do with the AUR, let's hit 1 and we want Spotify from the AUR. To do that, pacman needs to install all this because of dependencies. They are the dependencies for Spotify. and then from the AUR we will install Spotify. What you need to do with the AUR, because it's not written by the Arch or CachyOS developers, is to read through the script file that will be running to install the app. That is mandatory. You cannot skip this, and you shouldn't even if you could. You are hunting for something dodgy in here. What would be something dodgy? Ooh, it's a very, very long one. What would be dodgy? Like it would pull something from the internet that is not Spotify. That would be dodgy behavior. This is just... okay, so this is the actual script. So far it was only licensing nonsense because it is a licensed app. It is not open source. And what we are seeing here is, yeah, it's downloading Spotify from spotify.com. Nothing out of the ordinary in here. We can also see that the base is a .deb file. If that means nothing to you, that's fine as well. I'm not too happy about this. It might be fine. I will still do this install because, well, this is a red flag, by the way. If it's this long and doing all different kind of things, with Spotify we can be safe. We don't need to understand everything. Now I hit Q. That, yeah, I read everything. I want to quit. Do you accept this file to run? We do. We say yes to this one as well. Now this is not as fast as Pacman. Well, Pacman actually did its thing in a moment. And now it is running that script that we just read through, and it's installing the proprietary Spotify app. And it's done. And it's here. Ta-da! Okay. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to installing apps is flatpaks. Flatpaks exist, but their use is discouraged on Arch. Of course, you can do whatever you want. For example, my Discord is a flatpak file. And it's just because I found it more stable than the CachyOS one. I don't really want to get into flatpaks, as I said, and it's a whole philosophical question for Linux users. I might talk about it when I'm showing you in a future video a distro like Fedora. Now, let's talk about gaming. And not just gaming, but also what is going on in the background. So on Linux, a not Linux native game is made possible by two apps, Wine and Proton. Not that Proton, but the Proton that made by Valve. More about this in a possible future video, but just for now, none of these apps are emulators. Emulators are trying to act like the environment the emulated software is running on. It is a very similar concept to virtual PCs. Meanwhile, Proton is a compatibility layer. Think like this. On Windows, the app tells Windows what do they want to do, and then Windows, based on that, is asking your CPU to do those things. On Linux, this is exactly the same, but those exact calls are different. Proton is listening to the calls for Windows, translates it into what Linux can understand, and then they drop this message to Linux, which can now talk to the CPU. This is one extra step, so we are expecting performance drops on games. But what's going on? Certain games are running even faster on Linux than on Windows. In an ideal world, Windows apps should never work better on an OS than the one they are written for. Well, Windows is doing all kinds of dodgy things in the background, especially Windows 11. Not just dodgy things, sometimes there is a process that is required for your OS to work, but Windows 11 especially is doing a lot of dodgy things the users are not even asked for, like telemetry, or AI slop, and all sorts of things that is just not happening on Linux. By default, again, I'm not against AI. You can use AI as much as you want on Linux as well, but only if you specifically ask for it. For people who just want their computer to deal with the game they want to play, it's a burden. Now, let's jump into actual gaming. The Steam launcher is available. Actually, gaming on Linux is mostly thanks to Steam. So, you have almost the whole library. The only things that are not working, and this is not only true for Steam, is if your game requires an anti-cheat software. That anti-cheat software is written for Windows, and it is very, very deeply tied into Windows. It's just not going to work here. It's mostly like code, or I don't even know. I don't really play those games. What I'm playing, for example, is Path of Exile, where this is not an issue at all. Right. Yeah, I mean, I was attempting the Temple of Chaos. I think this is my last ascendancy with the character. It's a nightmare. I couldn't do it. I just wanted to show you that it's doing just fine. Now, what if you want to play with something that is not from Steam? I play with Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes on the desktop app from the EA app. That is made possible by an app called Lutris. So if you have anything to do with the EA app, it is Lutris that you need. Alright, so the EA app just had some disagreements with my computer. It's not Lutris, it's not Linux, it's just the EA app. So, um, we are just loading Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, my secondary account, and everything is working fine here. I am working on relicking my characters because of Relic Delta, if anyone is interested. But I assume not, so I move on to... this happens on Windows on it as well. Alright. Moving on. There is a third launcher. I make Lutris go away. It's called the Heroic Games Launcher. This is specifically made for Epic and GOG, which I'm not using, but and yeah, I only have one game installed at the moment, which is Satisfactory. All right, let's load into my save file. And here we go. We are in Satisfactory. This, by the way, is my main how should I call it, warehouse. It all comes into here, and if they are full, it quietly destroys themselves. And with that, I wrap up this video. I just sit here and drink some coffees, and see you guys in the next video.